Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker, and in today's video, I'm going to be doing something just a little bit different and redrafting the 2012 NBA draft. Now, I have over here the actual order of the original 2012 draft. I also have a spot where I can redraft my players and a player pool that I've kind of narrowed it down to about 15 players that are in contention for being in the top 10, because obviously I'm not going to redraft the entire draft. I'm just going to do the top 10 once again for the 2012 NBA draft. So in the original order, obviously Anthony Davis ended up going number 1, then his teammate Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, followed by Bradley Beal, Dion Waiters, Thomas Robinson, Damian Lillard, Harrison Barnes, Terrence Ross, Andre Drummond, and Austin Rivers. And there's a handful of guys that automatically I know are not going to be in the top 10 of this redraft. Dion Waiters, Thomas Robinson, Austin Rivers, and Terrence Ross, I'm pretty confident are not going to end up back in the top 10 of this redraft. So here is where I have my spots available to put where I would put all these players. Now, obviously I get the entire career of these players. So when I'm redrafting, I'm not doing it based off how good they are now. I'm doing it based off drafting them back in 2012 and where they should have been drafted based off how their careers ended up going. So number 1 is pretty obvious. It's going to be Anthony Davis. There's no reason for it not to be Anthony Davis. He's obviously the best player in the draft. He is one of the best players in the league. There's no other player that's going to be there other than AD. But number 2 gets a little bit interesting. I think most people would consider Damian Lillard to be an all-NBA caliber player. He has made all-NBA teams, an outstanding player. But Bradley Beal has been absolutely crushing it the last couple of months, really, especially since John Wall went down. The Wizards as a team have not been playing very well, but Beal obviously originally drafted 3 ahead of Damian Lillard. And I think it's a legitimate conversation to talk about who would potentially go number 2 in this redraft. For me personally, I'm going to go with Dame just because he's been doing it for a little bit longer than Bradley Beal has in terms of being this good. But he might be coming for him a little bit, and Beal is younger. So Lillard is going to go number 2 right here. And then like I talked about, Bradley Beal is going to stay right where he was at number 3. Obviously, originally MKG went before him and went at the 2 spot. And in this case, it's going to be Dame ahead of him. But Bradley Beal is still an outstanding player, an all-NBA, all-star caliber player in the NBA. And he's going to be someone that's going to continue to be a force for the Wizards moving forward. They obviously traded away Otto Porter. John Wall's not going to be able to play basically all of next year, I would imagine, coming off of the Achilles injury. So Bradley Beal is going to go number 3. And those are the pretty obvious ones, in my opinion. When I look back at this and redrafted this myself, these 3 guys were the obvious ones that were, completely ahead of everybody else. Not that there aren't good players behind them, and it's really kind of in tiers of like the top 3, the top 6, and then kind of everybody else, and you can have conversations within each of those layers about where you would put each player. And so the next player at number 4, which is probably going to end up being a semi-controversial selection, is going to be Draymond Green. Now, he obviously originally was drafted way down in the 2nd round. He's going to have a huge jump, which I'm going to talk about at the end, how many spots these guys jumped up or potentially went down in this redraft. But Draymond Green, you can say what you want about him being in a perfect situation with Golden State, playing with guys like Steph and Clay, and then eventually, obviously, KD as well. But he was a part of those original Golden State teams that didn't have that didn't have Kevin Durant on the roster, and really grew with Steph and Clay. It's not like Steph and Clay became outstanding and then, oh, here comes Draymond Green. They obviously were better than he was, and that helped him, fill a particular role. But he's done an incredible job of filling the role that they needed him to. Defensive Player of the Year candidate seemingly every single year, won it 1 year as well, and is a critical part of what they do. Now, moving forward, he is going to decline in terms of production, and his contract situation is kind of up in the air, so that might decrease his value. But in this redraft, I would have taken Draymond Green at number 4. Next up now, as I talked about, there's kind of the top 3, then the top 6, and then everybody else. And the other 2 guys that could be either 5 or 6 here, in my opinion, are Andre Drummond and then now Khris Middleton as well. Now, Middleton didn't really have an outstanding start to his career originally. He was a 2nd round pick and wasn't that productive of a player initially. And then Andre Drummond obviously was very good initially and is still very good. But for me, I kind of value Khris Middleton more than I do Drummond. Drummond, I feel like, is someone that you kind of have to not necessarily build around, but you have to focus on him a lot more for him to be as effective as he is. It's not that he's not a good player. It's just, you have to focus so much on him to make him productive and really, really valuable. Whereas Khris Middleton just kind of fits on any team in the league. I feel like if you put Khris Middleton on any team in the league, he would automatically make them better. He would automatically fit. And Andre Drummond, depending on which team he goes to, how well they're spaced, might not end up being that kind of a valuable player that Khris Middleton would be. So I'm going to put Khris Middleton at number 5, which of course means that Andre Drummond is going to be number 6. He's been playing extremely well for the Pistons as of late. But like I said, I just have some reservations about his fit potentially around the league if you just kind of plug and played him into different teams around the league. I think he wouldn't fit in as well necessarily as Khris Middleton. So there's the top 6. And now we're moving on to quote unquote some of the other guys. And that division, in my opinion, is pretty clear. All of the top 6 have made an all-star game at one point in their career, with Khris Middleton being added to that list this year. But the 7th player is going to be someone that also ended up winning a championship with those Golden State Warriors, and it's going to be Harrison Barnes. You can say what you want about his difficulties in the 2016 finals and the fact that the Cavs basically didn't guard him on the perimeter, his shooting struggles in that series, but he's still been very good for the Mavericks, continues to be good for the Kings, and he's not a star by any means, but Harrison Barnes is a very good NBA player, and once you get to 7, 8, 9, and 10, that's really kind of what you're hoping for from your draft pick. Sometimes you end up with a home run, sometimes even past that you end up with a home run player, but once you get to this point, if you can get a player of Harrison Barnes' caliber, then you're doing pretty well at this point in the draft, and that's why he places 7th in the redraft. As we move on now to number 8, I want you to take a quick glance at the player pool that is left. Again, these are the players in my estimation that are worthy of potentially being in the conversation for some of these selections in this redraft. And once you get to 8, 9, and 10, you could pretty much throw whoever you want and make your own justification on why they're there. Will Barton, Kent Bazemore, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, John Henson, Tyler Zeller, Evan Fournier, Jay Crowder, and Terrence Ross. And I would probably eliminate John Henson and Jay Crowder from that list as well. And really, even if you just took away those guys, I don't know, it's pretty tough to redraft at this point. But for me personally, I'm going to go with Evan Fournier of the Orlando Magic. He's a player that has been extremely productive for them when he's been healthy, and someone that we just don't really talk about a ton just because he's in Orlando and they're never really all that good. They're pushing towards the playoffs potentially this season, but Evan Fournier is a guy that can score, can shoot, can play make a little bit, not an outstanding defender, but fits in well and obviously did extremely well for himself as he was originally drafted, I believe, 20th and is now 8th, at least in my opinion, in this 2012 redraft. Number 9 now, in a similar kind of vein, is Will Barton of the Denver Nuggets. A very similar player in terms of a combo guard, can play make, can score, can shoot. Not an outstanding defender, but offensively brings you a lot. Both of these guys are signed to fairly reasonable contracts. Barton's more recently than Fournier's, and both of them kind of struggled a little bit earlier in their careers, more so Barton than Fournier, and both have really carved out really nice roles for them, for themselves in the league on their current teams. These aren't, the craziest picks or the most, flashy picks for guys 8, 9, and 10, because this draft really wasn't especially deep once you get to this point, but Will Barton has really carved out a nice little role for himself, like I said, with the 9th best player, at least in my estimation, in the 2012 draft, which brings us now to our last spot. And once again, look at the player pool. Kent Bazemore, MKG, John Henson, Tyler Zeller, Jay Crowder, and Terrence Ross. And in my opinion, you could really probably take out those 3 guys, and you're staring at either Kent Bazemore, MKG, or Terrence Ross. And I don't know, you could pick whoever you want, and obviously I want you guys to let me know down in the comment section how you would have ranked these players individually yourself, but I'm going to go with Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, and the only reason for that is just because when you watch Hornets games, he's actually pretty critically important to them, especially when they try and go smaller and they play him at the backup 5. And even though he cannot shoot, still to this day is not a good shooter at all, doesn't even look at it. I really like his versatility in the front court. Not that Kent Bazemore is a bad player, not that Terrence Ross is a bad player. They both, Terrence Ross has been playing really well, and Bazemore has been a key part of those Hawks teams in the past, even though they've been trying to get rid of him because of his contract. Just as a player, I just appreciate Kidd-Gilchrist's defensive versatility, his overall versatility in general, more so than those other 2 guys. So just a quick overview now of where I had these guys in the redraft. Anthony Davis obviously didn't change at all. Damian Lillard at 2 went up 4 spots. Bradley Beal didn't change. Draymond at the 4th spot went up 31 selections, and Khris Middleton actually is the high number in terms of increasing his own draft selection. He went from 39th to 5th, which is plus 34. Andre Drummond went up 3 spots. Harrison Barnes is in the exact same spot. Will Barton went up 31 from 40th to 9th, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist went down 8 spots, but is still within the top 10. So as always, let me know down in the comment section below, 1, what other drafts you guys would like to see me try and redraft, and also where you would put each of these players. It doesn't have to be the exact same list. You can rank any players from the 2012 draft in any kind of order that you want to, and I'll be looking forward to looking down in the comment section and seeing what you guys have to say. But with all that said, once again, my name is Tucker. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.